Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Illuminate series, where we have special guest Lindsay Ford joining us. Lindsay helps women shed their limiting beliefs, societal expectations, fears, and thought patterns that have been holding them back so that they can fully trust their intuition and courageously follow their dreams. So, welcome, Lindsay, and thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. And one thing that I love about you that I've just learned is that your talk about fear to freedom is actually like a real life lived experience. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, and it's so hard to know where to start because it's been such a slow evolution over, I would say, the last decade, but really when things came to a head was a couple years ago when I was separating from my husband. And at the time, I was a stay-at-home mom, homeschooling my kids. I had no income of my own. I had previously worked. I had a six-figure career, walked away from that. So that's a whole other fear moment.
Yep.
Um, Started a parenting coaching business while I was still working, moved into that and then ended up homeschooling my kids because of COVID and stuff. It needed to happen. And so I put all of that money making stuff aside, focused on being a mom and really creating this beautiful life with my kids, in terms of their education and how we were spending our days. And it was quite the contrast to when I was working full time, which I felt like life was a sprint. My quality of life was so low. I'm like, I check all the success boxes on paper. And I was like, this cannot be my life. And I could see my relationship with my kids suffering. And then when I was homeschooling, I'm like, this is more than I ever could have imagined. Like my relationship was so good with my kids. I loved the slow days. My stress level had drastically reduced. And I had this really beautiful life. But then my marriage fell apart and I'm like, okay, I need to start making money again. I need to start figuring out the other pieces that I had figured out before. Um, and it was funny because I went from this very masculine energy of do and then this very feminine energy of just being and flowing, and I needed to somehow marry the two again.
Yeah.
And so when I was at this crossroads, I was like, okay, I could go back, get a job. I know I'm fully capable of earning money. Put my kids back in school and go back into that hamster wheel. But that felt so suffocating to me. And I'm like, I know what that life is like, and I don't want that. I love the life we have now. I just need to figure out the money piece.
Yeah.
And at the time, I had wanted to start traveling again. So I was like, I'll just cash in some savings and trust myself to figure it out over the next, X number of months. And I know that sounds really risky to some people when they when they hear me say that, but to me, investing in what I wanted for myself and my kids and the life that I wanted, that just I needed to try, knowing
Yeah.
that I could come back to a job at any time. I could figure that piece out. So packed up my bags, my house, walked away from. I have no furniture. I have no home here in Canada anymore. I'll actually have no home anywhere. But at that time, packed up everything with just sort of but plan for the first 5 months. 2 months in Costa Rica with my kids. So I was continuing to homeschool. And then we spent a month in Mexico together, with my ex-husband and his family for Christmas. So all of us together, which was a thing.
Yep.
And then in January, the kids went with their dad. They went back to school, which is another fear I had to face. And I went to Bali for 2 months and just strictly on intuition. I knew nothing about the country. My intuition was just go to Bali, meet people to help you figure out your life. And so I did. And I had my first 3 nights booked, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into, and things just kind of unfolded. And it was a gradual unfolding. When I came back after that 2 months, I was doing some work for someone I had met, but it was just a project, a few months of work, and that was it. And still very much in this limbo period. And I don't know how much detail you want me to get into this story, but that was deeply uncomfortable coming back. I'm a mom. I have no home for my
Yeah.
kids. I don't know where I'm going to be, what kind of mother like first leaves their kids for 2 months and then like has no home. Like there's just so much inner work through all of this.
Yeah.
um there was also like the fear of working again because I was afraid to in my mind to be successful I had to go back into that very like do,
Mm.
and I was like there was a fear of doing that. um and then so I came back, stayed with my parents. I didn't know how long I was going to be. I could sort of feel that I was going to be in Canada until like September, but I had no idea like what I was doing or like why that was. And then so I got back from Bali in March, just to give some context. March, I knew I would be in Canada until September. By July is when I started to feel the pull to go back to Bali. And I was really felt like I needed to take the kids. I wanted them to go to school in Bali. I wanted them to experience Bali. So my plan was January to June, had that conversation with their dad. At the same time, my intuition was telling me go for 2 months again in the fall by yourself to just figure out everything, where you're going to live, the schools, learn how to drive a motorbike. And I fought that one really, really hard because I didn't want to leave them again. I'm like, I can do all that in January. Like I can figure things out with my kids. Um, but I trusted it was loud. The pull was loud.
Yeah.
And I went back for the 2 months, had like a 2 month vacation essentially. It did take me a lot more time than I thought to learn how to drive a motorbike. Um, Figured out where I wanted to send the kids to school. It really wasn't until January, a couple weeks into being there with my kids, that I understood um, why I was sent there in the fall, why I was pulled there in the fall, because the transition for my kids was so smooth. Like
Mm.
it was like I knew my way around. I just everything, there was nothing to figure out when I got there. Um and it's funny, like, I mean, I could go into so many different areas, but like the motorbike, I was absolutely terrified to drive a motorbike. The very idea of putting my kids on it with me was like the thought of it was like would bring me to tears.
Oh, wow.
It was like I was so afraid. And it took me months to figure out. And even when the kids were there, like there was some like moments where I was like, what am I doing? By the end of our 6 months there together, riding on the motorbike with my kids was one of like the most joy-filled experiences. Like I would almost be in tears being like, this is just like how life is meant to be.
Yeah.
Um, so I'll
That's
stop
amazing.
there. I'll stop there. There's so many pieces we could dive into. So I don't know what direction you want to go here.
Well, I mean, as a mom myself, I think one of the most valuable things you're talking about here is actually following that pull, following that calling that's coming up, even though it's going against the grain of what is expected of us as women, as mothers, how we're supposed to be as mothers, and allowing yourself to follow that intuition, even though it looks wrong. And I put this in quotes because it's not wrong. But for a lot of women, we're taught, you're a mom, and anything outside of that, you're not supposed to follow because mom is the number one job.
Yeah, and to leave my kids, I was apart from them for 4 months that calendar year, and that was wonderful in many ways, but excruciating in
Yeah,
other ways. And the guilt I felt, the criticism I felt, the judgment, like it was all stuff I needed to move through.
yeah,
Um, and even just like trusting that they would be okay with their dad.
yeah,
And he's a great dad, but we're very different parents. And he was, when I was homeschooling, like he had pretty much checked out of parenting. Like that was a really rough dynamic in the later years of our marriage there. But it was like trial by fire for him, and I had to just like give him space and my kids space to go through the muck.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so I know you've said there's a lot of fears that have come up for you as you've done this whole progression. So when you have those fears coming up, how do you, I guess, move yourself through it and trust that inner voice more so than the fear?
Yeah, there's been a couple of like practical, um, I'll say tools. Like one of the biggest realizations or like, I don't know if it's a tool, but like the fact that I could change my mind
Mm,
at any point, like that's been like a game changer when it comes to facing fears. Like I could have gone to Bali and not committed for the 2 months. I could have just got on a flight back home. I
yep.
could have started traveling with my kids initially and came back and got a job. Like you can change your mind at any time. And for me, that is really, really helpful
Yeah.
to know. Um, the second thing is just, once you start facing your fears, you sort of understand the process of what that looks like and that you're not going to ever be in absence of fear. Like fear will always crop up, and you can start to recognize it as just a part of the process. Like
Mm,
it's just like you're when you're moving towards something new and exciting, like there are parts of your being, I'll say like the ego parts that want to just keep you safe and hold you stuck. And then there's like the soul part that's the intuition I'm talking about. Like
yeah.
that's the part of you that's like go for it. Like we know you can do this. We've got you back. You're supported in every way. And like understanding that like this is just like the give and take,
Yeah.
or like that push pull process that is just part of any new situation. So I can be like curled up in the fetal position going, what am I doing with my life? And know that it'll pass. Know that like that I'm not getting stuck there. Like I
Mm,
don't have to get stuck there. That's just like, okay, I'm just feeling all the feels, and
yes.
and really like there is nothing else that we need to do. Just feel it all. And we were so conditioned to be afraid of feeling the feelings, feeling the
Yes.
hard stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm going on a pilgrimage. I leave in 18 days and I'm on a 49-day pilgrimage away from my kids, away from my husband, and traveling in a world completely on my own. And so there's been the fears that come up and then the soul voice that comes up and then the fears and then the soul. And Monday night, because of all this stuff that's been happening on my Facebook, it's like
Yeah.
I lost everything. I lost all these connections and stuff. The fear that came up was that when I'm there, I'm not going to be able to connect with anybody. And then it kind of started to go into my mind where I was questioning, is this my ego that's afraid right now, or is this my soul that's afraid? Does my soul know something more that my ego doesn't know? And I got into this whole ball of energy going, I don't even know if the soul can even feel fear right now. And the message that I got back was the soul feels fear, but it calls it courage. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
That's just like full body tingles. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's about following that voice despite, and the ego is so creative in how it wants to hold you back.
Yeah, it's very creative. It'll come up with all sorts of really random stuff to just keep you where you are. And not and it fails to recognize how risky it is to stay where you are, to stay stuck, to stay in a life or whatever part of your life like that is not serving you, that is not in full joy, that is like really um it's not the greatest expression of you. It
Yeah.
wants to keep you there, but it does not understand the risk of staying there versus your soul's just like, over here's more fun. Over here's like your purpose. Over here's like all the great things you're meant to be doing with your life. Come on, let's go. And you just gotta like, you just gotta like almost like take off the coat, take off the layers of the fear and the ego. And it's just this peeling back to be able to like fully express in the person that you're meant to be in this world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What would you say for people that I guess get stuck in the fear loop?
The the thing with that is you're getting stuck because you're assuming that is you, or that there's
Mm,
something wrong with you. Like you're identifying with it somehow. Sometimes our fear gives us strength, right? Like it becomes part of our identity. Um, if you can become the observer,
yep.
and whether that's in the moment or after, when you're just like, whoa, that really like consumed me there. Um, the more you can become the observer, the more you realize that all of those emotions are not you. When you're feeling fear, when you're feeling inadequate, or you've just like fell, like even the one time on my motorbike about a week or two into our trip with the kids, like I tipped it over and we fell into a ditch. And I was like it would have been so easy to be like, I'm terrible, I'm a bad mom, I can't do this, like all this stuff. But if you can just sit there and just watch all of that like conversation come up in your mind and all of that fear, and you can still like from the observer mode, you can also still tap into that soul part of you that's just like, well, it's just a hiccup. This is just part of learning. Like just go. Or maybe it's like a more cautious thing because when I went for those 2 months by myself, I actually like had to put the motorbike away for a week or two. It was just like, no, just take a break. Um, so learning to observe and knowing that it is not a part of you. There's nothing wrong with you if you're feeling fear is just part of the process. And like I
Yeah.
said, we've been so trained to either push through fear or push it aside, positive think our way out of it, talk ourselves out of it, reassure, like just feel it. Just
Yeah.
feel it and know that it's a wave of emotion that will pass and you'll have a clearer head. Don't make any decisions in fear because
Yes.
your brain is not functioning. It's functioning in a flight or flight. It's not functioning from any sort of logic reason. You can't tap into your intuition when you're full on in fear. um, you can't trust, I'll say, you can't trust yourself when you're in a heightened fear state anyways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to me, I believe like those kind of egoic parts are essentially created when we're young children. And we think we can trust, and then we fall down, and then we don't think we can trust anymore. So we start to get into these kind of patterns. Um, and I guess my question for you is, how have your kids reacted to you stepping through your fears? What have they witnessed? And have you seen a shift in them as well, based on you leading more from your heart now?
The shifts are subtle, but I'll give you this example that happened a couple weeks ago. My daughter, we were at a friend's house, and there's this bridge that we could jump off into the water. And she's 10, and she really wanted to do it, but she was so afraid. And we were all encouraging her to do it. I'll do it with you. Go for it. You're capable. All of that stuff. And it was like, borderline peer pressure here, but it was also like she really, really wanted to. And there was also like me and her friends were just like, if you're not ready, it's totally okay. But like, we'll do it with you. And she stood at that top of the bridge for a while. And then she finally just started crying. And then she climbed back over. She didn't end up doing it. And for me, that was one of the most beautiful experiences because she got to sit there in that limbo of fear. She got to experience that like desire to do something, but being so afraid of taking the first step. And she got to feel the emotion. And she's a child that really bottles things up. So seeing tears for me is just like, she's crying. Like I almost get excited. I'm like, oh, this is good.
Yeah.
Um, but she was able, and she used to get really upset when she cried, or if I said like it's okay, let it out, she would get angry with me. Like she just did not want to feel her feelings. And we had a beautiful conversation in the car of like that push pull, that whatever, and the crying. And she was just, and I was like, all was perfect with that scenario. And she was like, yeah, it really was. And she's seen me cry so much in the last couple of years. And there are times where I'm just like, where I tell my kids, I'm like, I'm just having a reaction right now. Like something triggered me. It has nothing to do with you. I
Yeah.
just need some space. I just need to cry. And she's witnessed me crying and being okay through all of it. And also just being able to to talk about like, okay, I understand this is happening. Um, and even with them, I'm just like, when I can acknowledge that, like I'm in an observer mode and also dealing, I'm like, I see like I'm consumed with fear. I'm really struggling with this. And I recognize that like this is the pattern that I just need to let play out right now. Give me some space, whatever. So it's like it, it, I'm seeing it in subtle ways
Yeah.
with my kids.
Awesome. Awesome. And I love how you just make it normal. Like, the experience of fear, it is a totally normal thing. And most of us go, I'm not supposed to feel this. And we really tense up. But what a beautiful gift to give to them, to give to yourself, and even to share with us today, to just allow yourself to feel it. And it's okay if, you feel that and you release the emotions and you still decide not to do it right now, anyways, because you can always go back.
You can always go back and it's okay. Like whatever, that's been another thing. Like whatever happens is just okay. And I do believe like things are divinely orchestrated. I believe that feelings come up or situations will trigger you so that feelings come up so you can heal and move through stuff. And like I said, whether my daughter jumped that day or didn't, like it was perfect.
Yeah.
That experience was just meant to happen the way it unfolded and learning to trust that whatever you are experiencing, it's okay. It's
Yeah.
just meant to unfold. There's no wrong answers. You're not going to there's if it stops you from doing something, then it stops you from doing something. And that's okay. Like it's just all okay.
That's amazing. The other thing that I really love that you said there is about how you'll allow yourself to cry in front of the kids and to go, okay, so I had this thing happen and I'm having this reaction, and just normalizing that kind of emotional process as well. Because I don't know about you, but I know for myself growing up, I didn't really see my parents experience emotions, but I seen their reactions to experiencing emotions, you know? Where it's been a lot of undoing that in our own raising of children and helping them see that, hey, we have emotions too. And this is okay. This is all a part of the process of just being human.
Yeah, and the more I get into all of my healing stuff, I mean I feel like on this journey for over a decade, but the more like I would say in the last year, everything comes back to just being willing to feel it. And that's the quickest way to move through anything is just to feel your emotions. And it's the human aspect of us, like to feel these emotions. So just feel it. Like, and know it's a wave that will pass. Like the joy is
Yes.
a wave, the fear is a wave, the heartbreak is like it's all a wave. It will, it will pass.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I know you work with women and you help them to move through their fears. So can you tell us a bit about your process there, and what kind of women do you most like to work with? Do you most get excited about?
You know what? I actually don't do any coaching around this. I just like
Okay.
it's just like through my podcast, through my social media, you will hear me talk about a lot of this. I do feel I will eventually get there, but it's not through that. Usually when I'm coaching, I'll say I'll put on the coaching hat is when I'm bringing people in, like I do affiliate marketing. So helping people start a business and
Mm,
start earning cash and money and changing the course of their life. They're people that want to, they're not coming in saying, I like my dream is to start an affiliate marketing business. They're saying, I really want to homeschool my kids and not be broke. I
mhm,
really want to have an option whether or not to send my kids to school. I really want to start traveling more. I really want to have a backup because, I was let go during the pandemic and it's really real now that I'm disposable and I want to take control of my life. And so people coming in and they're just wanting to change their life and they're looking at ways of earning money. And so I am helping them navigate that process. So that's like the context of where I'm actually speaking to people. But generally speaking, like and the way I do that business is I talk about the things that I want to. I talk about all this fear. Like this is like a passion of mine. I talk about my life. And if people are attracted to me, if people are wanting or share similar goals to me, then those are the people that I'm attracting into that affiliate marketing business. So it's really through that lens that I work. But I could talk about this stuff forever. Like I love helping people just realize that they don't have to be stuck, that they
Yeah.
can move forward, that they can go after their dreams. And that is the most beautiful thing. Like I just get to like help people be more of themselves. And it's
Mm.
just like, it's amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I'm going back to way early in our
Yeah.
conversation here, but you were talking about how you'd been in this masculine energy of
Mhm.
do, 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 and then you went into the feminine. And then it sounds like you're actually marrying the two now. So, what advice would you give to people that are feeling like they're very much in the feminine or very much in the masculine?
Oh, that's a great question because like trying to marry the two is a continual work in progress because it's so easy for me to get sucked into work, work, work. Or it's so easy for me to be like, oh, I just, want to go to the park or like for a walk and I don't actually want to work right now. And it's this delicate balance of like following the pull of your intuition but not using it as a procrastination tactic.
Exactly.
And then on the flip side of that is like setting boundaries and
Mm,
and um noticing your happiness level. And I don't know a better way to describe that, but if I work, work, work and I don't get outside and I don't move my body, I I feel I don't know if depressed is the word, but it's down. Like my energy is down. I'm more grumpy. I'm not the best mom with my kids. So I would say just start to notice. I feel like it really all comes back to noticing your patterns and where you can start to interrupt those patterns, but you can't interrupt the patterns. You can't understand how to set boundaries unless you understand the patterns that you want to break.
yeah. Yeah. And so, how would you encourage people to recognize those patterns? Like for yourself, what is the patterns that you've noticed that you're like, okay, that's got to stop?
Yeah, so for me with work, it's it went on days where I don't have my kids is when I really notice it because then I there's nothing to interrupt
Yeah.
my days. There's no reason for me to go outside. There's no reason for me to, break at 3 o'clock to go pick up the kids from school or whatever it is. Um, so it's for recognizing it's just paying attention to your mood. It's paying attention to the thoughts that come up and it's subtle. So I mean, you can focus you can like sometimes I'll sit in meditation or journal and like show me the patterns. Like I see this, I see my mood has shifted. I
Mm,
see like I'm just self-sabotaging this week. I see that I'm procrastinating so there's something here that's trying to get my attention. There's something here that's trying to be shown to me. And ask, show it to me, make it obvious. Like, help me understand what this pattern is. So if you feel yourself, like, if you notice that, like, hey, I'm really snappy with my kids this week, like, that's the first step of noticing the pattern. And then you can, like, just start to observe, like, maybe when does your patience wear thin? Like, at what time of the day? Or even like for me, getting outside is a big one. Like if I don't get outside, I'm grumpier like
yeah.
later in the day. When I was homeschooling my kids, if we did not get outside before lunch, the afternoon would go to garbage. Like it would just you just start to just just say pay attention. And if you're too busy, it's going to be harder
Yeah.
to pay attention because you're just doing, you're not um I mean, more things come up when you have slower days.
Yes.
You're able to see more. So, I guess that's a word of caution and also a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah.
Yeah, I know for myself, I used to be like hyperdrive, go, 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 go. And it was actually because of COVID and that huge slowdown that I think everybody experienced that it made me realize just how overworked I had been making myself. And it's like, I choose my own hours. So why am I running myself into the ground right now? It doesn't even make logical sense. But there was this part of me that thought I need to do, and get all of this stuff done.
And it's tied to your self-worth.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of us are, if you're not doing, if you're not helping someone, if you're not taking care of someone, you're not worthy. You're not worthy of a break. I was raised like, do your homework and then play. Like, work first, then play. And I'm like, there's always work to do. And it used to piss me off that my ex-husband came home from work and he would just sit on the couch, or on weekends he would just be like, I'm just relaxing. And I'm like, there's so much to do. And he's like, can't you just relax? I'm like, no, there's things to do. Like, it has to get done first. It was a pattern I had to unlearn. Like, it was
Same.
it's it's so ingrained in us, but there is usefulness in rest, and that's even built into our menstrual cycle. Like, there are days of the month where, your brain kind of shuts down, your body's just like, I don't want to do anything. And because like, we need to rest, we need to do nothing, we need to have space in our day. And even like with our menstrual cycle in our bodies, like, it's designed to do that. And then, once you get into ovulation, you go 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 go, and knowing that, like, the rest needs to happen in order for you to have those sprints.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because it was something I experienced with my husband too, where I'd actually get jealous and almost resentful, where
Yes.
it's like, how can you just lay on the couch and do nothing? And it was so good for me to reflect on how do I actually feel when I'm laying on the couch and doing nothing. And the judgment and criticism I was putting on him was actually the inner judgment and criticism that I didn't want to give to myself by doing the same thing.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's so hard, or it was so hard. Now I'm like, I'm reading a book, I'm taking a bath. I've got these things that I love to do that I have to put into my daily schedule that isn't the same as like laying on the couch and watching TV. But for my husband, that's his downtime, you know?
Yeah. Um, Understanding your cycles and your needs for rest is massive. I remember when I was working full time, um, I would go for a walk at lunch, no matter how busy I was. And I remember my boss criticizing me the one time, and I'm like, you don't understand. Like, my brain shuts off around like 2:30. Like, if I go for a walk, that can get me to the end of the day. Like, I could sit at my desk and look like I'm busy. I could sit at my desk and do work that's like my attention is sort of in and out of it. I can look busy, and or I can actually like take a break,
Yeah.
and then like my brain fires up and I'm actually able to be more productive, even though I've taken that time. And knowing that pattern, when I started working for myself, I mean, it's I mean, it's just helpful to know your patterns. And like, when does your brain shut off? When are you just working because you feel like you have to, but you're not, you're busy but you're not productive? Like, that's usually a sign you need a break. And probably taking a break and reading a book outside for an hour, you could go back and then bang out a lot more, like, in terms of productivity, than had you just sort of like slogged through it.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of women, there's a lot of pressure. And I don't know if it's societal pressure, if it's like just how it's been throughout the generations or whatever. But there's so much that's tied into what we're producing. And it's, you have to have great kids who are getting great grades, who are meeting all of these criterias. And you have to have a happy husband, and you have to have a clean house, and you have to be working, but act like you're not. Like it's just
Yeah, it's
all of these
wild.
messages.
Yeah, and we're told, like, so much of our programming, we don't need a man, we can do it all. And if I could rewind back time to even like when I was giving birth, I did not rest after I gave birth. I was just like, I should be able to handle this. I'm told I can do this. Like, blah blah. Like, I wish I could go back and smack that girl on the side of the head. I'm like, take a break, take help.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with you for slowing down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't need to just do. That's very masculine and that's draining. No one can be in that state all the time. Even men, they need to like have a break, and
Yeah,
they take a break,
absolutely.
unapologetically take a break. I think we can learn something from that.
100% because their ability to actually recognize I'm burning out and to take that break to lay on the couch or to hang out with the guys or whatever. It's like, well, this is just what guys do. But us women could actually really use that ourselves to go, yeah, I'm taking this. And I know for myself, a lot of times the feeling that has come up is selfishness. Like, I'm being selfish. If I ask to go have a bath right now, I'm being selfish, which is like my husband had to nail that one out of me. It's like, you need to have a bath. It's okay. Like, go relax, enjoy yourself.
Well, to ask for it, sometimes we wait for our partners to suggest it. Like, why isn't he like that was one for me. Like, it was so hard for me to ask for help, but he wasn't anticipating what I needed. Like, it was just like this horrible cycle of just like, um, I wasn't getting what but like men, they're just like, I'm gonna go have a bath. Done. And they're just like, leave you to take care of like figure out whatever is gonna happen. We don't do that. We're just like, oh, if I need to like a bath, or if I'm going out, I'm gonna make you dinner. I'm gonna make sure like all the things. No, just go. It's okay.
Yeah.
Life will continue. Life will go on.
Yeah. And yeah, it's interesting. I read an article quite a few years ago, and it's popping into my head now about a mother who was raising a teenage son and a teenage daughter, and they both had friends over one night. And she went to the teenage son's room and she said, I'm going to go and order some pizza. Do you guys want anything? How many pizzas do you want me to grab? How many drinks? And the guys were like, three pizzas, and this is what we want for the toppings, and this is what we'll have for drinks. And they were just like, this is what we want. When she got to the girls' room and asked them the same question, they're like, well, if they're hungry, I will. If they want something, I will. And it's like we've been programmed to agree to what the whole consensus is wanting from us rather than just going, yeah, I'm actually hungry right now. And I can see how many times I've done that throughout my life to be like, well, if it's not an inconvenience, I'll take some food, please. Meanwhile, my stomach's like, ah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Or we look around to others to make sure it's okay for us to say we want like three pieces of pizza, or there's our programming is fascinating.
It is. It really is. And the more you let go of it and the more you recognize, like, no, actually, I want three pieces of pizza and you honor that for yourself, it's so empowering to just be like, I can say it, I can want it, I can get it.
And
Amazing.
by doing that, you're signaling to like you're giving permission to other people around you to do the exact same thing, whether that's your
Yes,
kids or your friends or whatever it is. But like when you can fully step in and say like, no, this is how I want things to be, that gives other people permission to step up and do the same
absolutely. Absolutely.
thing.
Awesome. I wasn't expecting us to kind of go into this gender specific different roles and stuff. And yet it's something that I see so often. And when I have clients that come to me, I work with primarily women. That's the interesting thing too, is I don't have a lot of men come to get help. And I feel like more men are needing help. But when women come, it's often because they are feeling unsatisfied in relationships, in career, with family. Like there's this whole burden that women are carrying on their shoulders. And for a lot of them, when it's like, well, what's in your heart? They're so disconnected. They don't actually even know anymore what it is that they want out of life.
Yeah, and I would say I was there. Like we're the we limit our dreams. Like we censor our own dreams, and and then we're so out of touch with what we want, like because our dreams seem unattainable, because our life is revolving around other people. We're putting all of that burden, all of that heavy weight on us, and we're not allowing ourselves to expand and be free. It wasn't until I allowed myself to start dreaming again that I felt like more of myself. Like I didn't realize a part of me had died
Yeah.
until it was being reawakened. And for me, it was dreaming about traveling again, even when I had no idea how I would ever travel. Like I just and someone just said, "You need to start, like, this is like, just dream, don't worry about how, just, like, dream and be in that dream," and I was able to do that because I wasn't like, "Oh, I don't know if this is possible, I don't know if this will ever happen, what's the point of dreaming?" I was just like, oh, like, just imagining myself, like, on a beach somewhere or, I don't know, but it, like, really, it opened up my creativity. I was happier just by sitting in my imagination. And then 6 months later, I was boarding a plane for 5 months, and I was like, how did that even happen?"
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's like you have to have that vision or the ability to even see it, to feel it. And it's almost like shooting an arrow into the future to go, I want to be here, and then following that thread. And I think one of the important things that you said is, I don't know how this is going to happen. And I think a lot of us wait for all of those hows to come to us, but it's not up to us to figure out how.
It's not up to us to figure out how, and I bet if every single person listening to this tuned in right now, they probably could pinpoint one, like, even just like a morsel of a dream that they have, or a thought that keeps popping into their head every now and then. Like, that is a thread you need to turn and look at and face, because that is like your soul, your future self, or your higher self, whatever you want to call it. Like, they're just like, it's trying to get your attention, and you're just like, oh, travel? Like, oh, like, you just sort of like automatically dismiss it. Start to notice like the thoughts that are popping into your head. For me, for a while, it was like, I want to like start my own private school. I don't have that dream anymore, but like I could see what was wrong in the education system and I wanted my kids out.
Yeah,
And then suddenly they were out, and I mean they're back in right now, but like they're in and out. But like these little pulls, like, or these little thoughts, like, they're there. There are seeds being planted. They're there for you to like turn and look at.
absolutely. And I mean, in your own way, you did kind of actually start a private school when you were doing the homeschooling journey. So it's like, okay, so that was kind of realized, maybe
Yeah.
not in the format that you thought. And I think that's another piece of it as well. Is I know for myself, some of the, I call them glimmers that come in. It's like sometimes they're just pointing an arrow. Hey, follow this and follow this and follow this. And then the whole picture ends up getting revealed. And it's like, oh, never saw that one coming.
Yeah. And when you start to just notice those impulses, like it might be like the pull of a bigger dream, or it just might be like the sudden urge to go like to a yoga class today or to a certain store. And you're just like, what? But the amount of times, like, you can sort of then, that trip to the store ended up with this conversation, or that planted this idea that led to this. Like, there's just like, if you can start to pay attention to those little miracles that are sprinkled throughout your day, like, life gets to be so cool. You just sort of understand that like life is co-creating with you, and it wants you to
Yes.
have dreams. It wants you, if you have a dream of homeschooling your kids, if you have a dream of travel, if you have a dream just of not, having to look at your bank account, or feeling like like weighed down by like the inflating costs, and you know life is putting you in front of people or conversations that's giving you ideas, like all of that is such a beautiful part of the pay attention. Just pay attention, start to notice.
Yes. I love that. And then another question I have for you is, have you faced disappointment? So when you're reaching for these dreams, has there been any pushback or challenges that you've really had to, I'm going to say, hold on to the dream that much tighter so you can get through the challenges?
Yeah. So one of the things what has been with earning money, um, because it's been, initially, like, I was traveling off of savings, and it wasn't for, it was maybe 10 months before I got into the business that I'm in. And then I was like, okay, affiliate marketing, like network marketing, like you're kind of like sold that it's gonna happen quick and you're gonna, make the big bucks, which is a lie. I think it's totally possible and totally doable, but it's also like, for a lot of people it's slow. And I think that's where a lot of the hangups or pushback against sort of that type of business come in. And I've witnessed it in my mom, I've witnessed it in my friends, of just where they're like super, super excited and into it. and then sort of that promise of quick success doesn't come, and they're just like, "Oh, this doesn't work. This was a scam. This was whatever, whatever." Um, so this business has taken me way longer than I thought it would take, and there has been a lot of self-reflecting, a lot of like, "Is this still what I wanna do? Is this" and it's trusting the intuition and trusting that, the intuition will tell me if I should be going a different direction. The intuition will tell me whether or not I should still be there. And it becomes this is just like my shining example, not my shining example, but like it becomes an act of faith as you move through these like I don't even want to say disappointments or where things take longer, divine timing and all that stuff as, different timelines. Super annoying. But it really comes back to the faith in yourself, in your intuition, in your ability to um sort of I'll say assess, but it's like your ability to know what is the next right step, and we only just need to know the next right step for us. So, again, it's like sitting with all the feelings, sitting with all of the, I know now that, you know, if you don't have immediate success in a business, which is this is something that I really beat myself up on when I was doing my parenting business. I'm like, I'm no good. I had some success, but like, it didn't explode. I'm no good. What do I have that like why would people want to listen to me? You get down on yourself. You take it as a comment on your self-worth. It is none of that.
Yeah.
It is just a puzzle that you're figuring it out and continue to figure out. And even right now, like with health stuff, like I don't know if you can see, like my eyes are super poofy and stuff like that. Like health stuff used to just overwhelm me. And I'd be like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? It's so overwhelming. I feel defeated. Now I'm just like, oh, this is another puzzle to figure out. Let's figure it out. So if you can shift from that, like overwhelmed, defeated, um, commenting on your self-worth, like again, it's just all your patterns.
Yeah.
You can make it like, oh, this is super weird. This is happening. Put your curiosity hat on. That's like a big way to shift things is put your curiosity hat on and start to look at it as a puzzle to figure out and trust yourself and have faith in yourself to know when it's time to pivot and or when it's time to even just like pay attention to those ideas that are presenting yourself that are being presented to you along the way and pulling at those threads. So it's a journey, trusting the journey and
Absolutely.
trusting yourself.
Absolutely. And one of the most valuable things that I've learned over the years is to just not take anything that's happening as personal. It's not a reflection of myself or who I am at the core of my being. It just is. And I know for the longest time, I had this kind of similar to you, this running commentary. If clients were coming, this meant this. And if clients weren't coming, this meant this. And if money was coming, this meant this. And it was always like this reflection that it doesn't have to be personal, but it can be an opportunity to see what in you is taking it personally so that you can deal with those emotions as they're coming up.
Yeah, it's just all an opportunity to heal and grow as a human being.
Yeah.
And it can become, I mean, it's still hard and not fun to go through, but it's when you don't attach your self-worth to it, when you don't let it, you take you're not letting it be personal. It doesn't consume you in the same way. It doesn't stop you in the same way. You're just like, oh, this is the game of life that we get to play.
Yes. I love that. And then one last question for you that I try to remember to ask all of my guests. If you could tell the world one thing right now, what would you want the world to know?
Oh, that's such a good broad question. Um, I mean, the first thing that popped into my mind was relax.
Mm,
And I think it just goes back to what I just said, like you can change your mind at any time. life gets to be a fun game if you let it. You're just constantly figuring things out. Just chill out. It's not, we try to treat things like this high level or high stake game that we're playing. Even parenting, it's okay if you screw up aspects of parenting. It's okay if you mess up. It's okay. Like just relax. It's everything's working out perfectly. You're just learning as you go.
I love that. Absolutely love that.
Very
Thank
good.
you so much, Lindsay, for joining me here today. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you, and I'm sure others will totally love this conversation as well.
Yeah, it's been such a fun conversation. I really, really appreciate you and appreciate this conversation. So thank you.
Thank you.